Okay, perfect. Awesome. Change my background. Uh, did everyone show up to the judge event, the judge training?
Yeah, just one judge showed up like 10, 20 minutes late, but I'm sure they just had an issue. They just missed the case recap, but they have the case, so it's fine. They didn't miss
well,
like presentation and scoring, which is good.
Great. Awesome. Let me just double check something.
Wow, it's snowing.
Like a lot.
Yeah, I just looked out. Wow.
Okay, we're gonna have to remind Yuzoma to send us her picture. And University of Vermont, we have all of them.
You're live. Look, uni names.
I'm so sorry. Okay, a judge just came in.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Morning.
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us. We really
Sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Was everything clear at the judge training?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've never done this before, so.
It's a very cool experience, and a lot of judges really like it. So
Yeah, that's what Phil was rubbing his hands yesterday. He was like, "Meh."
Phil is one who judges previously, and he loves it also. So
Yeah.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Good morning.
Mm. Should we add George to our name or it's not required?
Not required.
Okay,
But thank you.
because we did it last year.
Yeah, you can if you want, but we don't require because we're gonna have the students have the name, the school
Yeah,
name, not
makes
school, the team name.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So who are you exactly? I don't know who you are.
Mm, I'm Bahar. Actually, I'm I think I'm for the engineering part, so I'm a prof in electrical and computer engineering department at Concordia.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Good morning. I'm Paul. I'm with 3CE, more on the engineering and certification side of things.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How about yourself?
I'm Stephen. I guess I'm on the business side for Canadian National Railway.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
I also teach part-time strategy at Concord.
Okay.
Okay.
Business strategy, marketing, or yeah.
Business.
We're simply missing one judge. The person should come in really shortly. And we're gonna let in the students at around 10:02 so they can start presenting at 10:05.
Okay.
Also, we only have 2 presentations this morning, so at 12 you will be free, allowed to leave.
And that's it for us. For the rest, we don't have any other obligations, right?
Exactly.
The Google Drive, I was trying to get into the thing. I don't seems to be.
You have any issues with accessing it?
I was in there earlier, and now
Yeah.
I don't know. Everything is grayed, so I see my case 3 CCC Division 2. I'm trying to open it, but it's not letting me open it. I'm guessing we grade as it goes, like we put in our notes and things as it goes in the Google Drive sheet.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you want to answer that, Gab?
Yeah, you should be able to see your sheet. I don't know why it's necessarily grayed out, but pretty much once you enter the judging sheet, you go to your own specific sheet with your name on it, and you just put the scores exactly for the team. We have the team names already there. You just put the score, it automatically saves. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
And you will be given
Okay.
specific time to enter your scoring. So you don't have to worry about that.
So I see some names at the bottom of this sheet. Oh,
Do you see
Oh.
yours?
case 2 L3H Division 2. That's not us, right?
Maybe you went to the last
Case
year.
Case 3 CCC Division 2. Is that what I'm looking at? Yeah.
Yes, that is the one you should be looking at. Your name should be at the bottom.
Ah, there you go. Okay, I see mine.
Perfect. Good.
Oh my.
Any idea, Gab, where Jonathan is?
Maybe it's the person in the waiting room. Do you want to try?
Oh,
There he is.
oh, there he is.
There he is.
This grading sheet doesn't appear to the students, right?
No.
Okay.
No, you
It's
can add notes if you
judges
want.
and I.
And judges and you. And the grid that they showed in the PowerPoint earlier this morning with the weighting and all that, and is that somewhere
It's in
nearby?
Oh, if you want to have a look at it, yeah, if you go back into the drive, you can make a new tab to keep the sheet. You'll be able to see it at the beginning in the files.
Good
You'll
morning,
see
Jonathan.
grading scheme.
Morning.
How are
everyone.
you?
Good yourself?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jonathan Watchman. I'm working for Bombardier Aerospace. Basically, I said aerospace, but now it's Bombardier Aviation. It's to get used to it. So I'm more like I would say in terms of responsibility, I'm more like a general profile, meaning that I used to be in engineering. I used to be in business planning and strategy. I'm now in operations as well. So it's more like a generic role within the company, mostly driven for strategic projects and decision making. So that's my it's in my background in few words, if I can say.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Now that we're all here, we're only missing the participants.
Are we expected to be on camera?
Yes.
I may, at some point, I may have to step away for 3 minutes, so I'll turn my camera off, but
No worries. Thank you for letting us know. I'm going to. Are they in the waiting room? No. Who do you think Student Inc. is, Gab?
Where do I think they are?
Yeah, who do you think they are?
Like which team?
Student Inc. in the
Oh,
waiting
Student
room.
Inc. Oh, admit them and see who it is. Maybe it's
Okay,
them.
we'll see. I'm gonna send them an email. It's not them. Okay.
No, they're there. Gab,
Hi.
they're all in one room.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for joining us. I didn't know it was you guys because you were called Student Inc. How are you doing? Can they hear us?
They are mute, actually.
They're muted.
You are muted. Hello?
Can you hear us now?
Yes. Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good, good.
Awesome. So I'll let you share your screen. And as you are doing that, I'll remind everyone of today's presentation order. So you have 1 more minute to set up. Once that is done, you have 15 minutes to present. Will be followed by a 15-minute Q&A. When that is done, I will open breakout rooms. The judges can go deliberate in their own room and the participants can go in the other room. Once that is done, we're all going to meet back in the main room for a 10-minute feedback period. Any questions?
No, that's
No.
great. Thank you.
That's great, thank you.
Perfect. You guys can share your screen. Perfect. When you're ready, the floor is yours. Good luck.
Sharing the wrong one. I think I'm sharing the wrong screen. Apologies.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could see the PowerPoint.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. We see slide 3.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Okay, we're ready to start. Hello and welcome to our presentation for ENGCOM 2022. We are Renew Consulting and we are presenting on behalf of CERT Centre Canada. We are a multidisciplinary team made up of myself and Elena, the engineering specialist, and Robin and Matea, our business specialist. For the case today, we have been tasked to develop and design a commercial or non-commercial platform relevant to Quebec. In the creation of this platform, we will create a total spend profile and a total employment profile for this platform. We must also achieve carbon neutrality before 2050. We have also been tasked to design a roadmap showing the timeline 2032 to 2050. Why does this project matter? Well, 11% of the population of Quebec are Indigenous. In 2020, the Canadian government surveyed people from 16 Aboriginal communities, and 90% of correspondents reported that they skipped meals, ate less, or just went hungry because they could not afford food. For prices such as $20.18 for a 4-liter carton of milk, $28 for cabbage, and a whooping $65 for chicken, you can see how costly it is to simply exist in these remote locations. Currently, the 1.919 million people living in these remote areas depend on the Canadian Postal Service to deliver their necessary items. Canada Post simply cannot keep up with this demand, which reached over 2 million packages a day over Christmas 2020. This level of traffic just isn't sustainable by the Postal Service, and another option is desperately needed for these people. This is our solution, the Canadian Inclusivity Transporter. It is a tilt-rotor plane that runs on sustainable aviation fuel with a sleek, lightweight carbon fiber composite frame. Some of its features include an autonomous option, allowing the plane to be driven using a remote control by the pilot. It has a capacity to carry 10 passengers and pilot, or 5 passengers, pilot, and supplies. The body of the plane and the placement of the rotors are designed to remain in place during flight. The plane will be manufactured using 3D printing of the shell and will be made from corrosion and heat-resistant materials for added safety.
In terms of fuel, we have opted for sustainable aviation fuel, also referred to as SAF. SAF is produced using waste from households such as packaging, oils, and textiles, and also from businesses such as forestry and agriculture. And these wastes are then converted to SAF and can be used to power all sorts of planes, which will in turn reduce the volume of waste reaching landfill and also the waste reaching incineration in Montreal. This will then in turn improve the air quality in Montreal. Another important factor about SAF is that it is safe, reliable, and produces 80% less carbon emissions than existing fuels. In terms of our infrastructure, we aim to connect 14 airports using 5 planes to reach all Indigenous settlements throughout Quebec. To combat the carbon emissions from the planes, we propose using mechanical trees to absorb the carbon and reprocess it into useful applications, such as in concrete production. So here we have a brief summary of our service, Delivery Connect. We will deliver critical goods such as food, medicine, and educational tools to remote settlements throughout Quebec, while also providing transport to these people back to cities for non-emergency medical care. We will also deliver hunting gear, which will allow the Indigenous people to uphold their own traditions and cultures. This bridge will also allow for the development of employment and trading with these settlements if they choose to do so. So to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, we did a brief calculation based on our own assumptions of flight time and frequency for these journeys. If we ignore the mechanical tree forests already in existence, which absorb 3.8 million tons of carbon from the atmosphere each year, we estimate that the company will need to install 5,000 trees per year from 2032 to 2050. These in turn will then counteract carbon emissions from our planes and achieve carbon neutrality. So now let's take a look at some of the benefits of this proposal. We will create a bridge between settlements and cities, which will in turn promote inclusivity and equality amongst the population in Quebec, and this will also allow for more equal spread of food and resources. It will increase the settlement's quality of life as they will now have food security, which will allow them to remain settled and preserve their own cultural heritage. As mentioned, SAFs are energy efficient and therefore will require less fuel ups, and it is also renewable and sustainable source of fuel, so it will begin replacing fossil fuel in the future. We also aim to achieve carbon neutrality, as mentioned before, as a more green and sustainable method of aerospace by 2050. So here we can see our roadmap in how we aim to achieve this, beginning with conceptualizing our plane design, prototyping, testing, moving upwards through the phases into marketing using social media as our main platform, and building professional relationships both with the Indigenous people and also educational and academic areas. And we will then finally begin expansion by purchasing more mechanical trees and obtain carbon neutrality. So here we have our employee profiles in how we will achieve these goals, which will feature engineers to design and manufacture. We also have maintenance and mechanics for service and support. We have pilots and crew members for flying, loading and unloading the supplies. And we also have other various roles such as in marketing, finance, and sales. I will now pass you over to Matea.
Thank you, Elena. So there are 82,890 Indigenous people living in Quebec. They are spread over 55 Indigenous communities. The Inuit people reside in 14 northern villages, and each village is headed by a mayor and a council with responsibilities similar to those of elected officials in other Quebec municipalities. This image here shows an overview of Indigenous communities in Quebec, where the goods would be delivered to the people living in those nearby areas. So our runways would be based in 14 different locations. And then individual villages would then consider the best way of delivering those goods to people. Here we can see the median income for men is higher than the median income for women for approximately $13,500. And we can see also a noticeable gap in median income for registered Indian men living on reserve. So their median income is about 1/3 as large as the median income for non-Indigenous men. Then here we see members of all Indigenous group are more likely to be living in low income situation. We can see non-Indigenous people staying at stable just below 14%. We can see the gaps between the groups for approximately between 3 to 5%. This chart shows Indigenous people have lower employment rates than the non-Indigenous population. Here we see significant gaps in high school completion between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. Next, we looked at the viability of this project. So we would expect that the vast majority of the funding for this would come from the government sources. The Canadian government is committed to reconciling past failures and to bring about large-scale improvements to the lives of the Indigenous people. Another option for funding is to look at running the operation as a charitable organization once the initial outlay has been completed. Canada Post, while it can't currently keep up with the entire market demand, it does have some capacity to perform deliveries and may be willing to invest in this project as a joint venture. This project is likely to be popular with citizens and voters. I'm going to pass you on to Robin now.
Thanks, Matea. To further our investigations into the viability of this project, we performed a SWOT analysis, where we identified strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Our project strengths are that it is environmentally friendly, reduces demand on household waste management, is inclusive and brings equality amongst the people of Canada, and increases the overall health of the population. The weaknesses we have identified are the costs, the availability of suitable runways, and the issue of a really sparsely dispersed population, which means intricate delivery schedules are needed to reach everyone. Some threats are the weather. Harsh weather in the winter can mean hazardous flying conditions, and another threat is food spoilage. Access to safe food storage may not be available in remote areas due to lack of electricity, and a refrigeration system would need to be installed on board the aircraft. As for opportunities, we recognise that this could be a very popular project with the public and that it has the potential to become a link between the Indigenous people and the more urbanised areas of Canada, which opens up links for trade and employment for those people. On the issue of public support, millennials and Generation Z are both strong supporters of equality and inclusion in society, and they would have an awareness of the difficult history the Indigenous people have had to endure and harsh conditions that they live in. People recognise the importance of preserving traditional cultures and will likely be in support of any measures needed to ensure this happens. I will now take you through the costings of our proposal. For the first and second years, we went with the costings as advised in the brief, with the costs evenly spread between both years. These are represented in the pie chart. For marketing, we looked at a figure of 3.4% of the spend, which is roughly 20 million a year. Moving forward to year 2, we have the same costs again, and the addition of $70,000 for fuel and $75,000 for materials for each plane, and $70,000 for the development of AI. Going forward from year 3 onwards, rental of the hangar is estimated to be $2 million a year, $2,800,000 for labour costs, $15 million for ongoing training, and $3 million for certification. Now I would like to discuss the marketing campaign that we have envisioned for this project. As you can see here on the left, this is the logo we have created for the project. We called it Delivery Connect, and its slogan is Bridging Through the Air. As Start Canada wished to market this project to younger people, we would mainly run the campaign on social media. Indigenous influencers are becoming more and more prevalent on TikTok, and they are bringing a spotlight on traditional Indigenous practices, and they could be employed to highlight even further the challenges faced in remote locations and the improvement our project makes. Instagram is another very popular social media platform. Here are some Instagram posts we have designed. These two aim to bring brand awareness to Delivery Connect and will be scattered through Instagram feeds. These two are more informative and would be used for direct marketing to our target audience. In summary, our project aims to bridge the physical, geographical, and social gap between the urbanised areas of Quebec and the remote Indigenous communities through the use of environmentally friendly aircraft carriers. This would benefit the wider population of Quebec through inclusion, equality, lower carbon emissions, and a method of eliminating household waste without the use of landfills and incinerators. This concludes our presentation. We thank you for your attention and will be now happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you to the Renewed Consulting team. The judges, now it's your turn if you have any questions. You have 15 minutes. Thank you.
Maybe I'll take the first one. So thank you for the presentation. I think it was a great summary of what you're looking for. Just maybe in terms of roadmaps for to succeed in your project, I'm looking at the timing. I saw it was from 2023 to 2027. I think the intent you had to put everything in place. Can you provide a bit more details about like the different steps, how much time it's going to take from the development to the design and the certification to lead to that 2027 entry into service, I would say. And as a second fold, it will be also, can you expand a bit more on the same thing, timing for resource requirements? I think you had like a pie chart giving us visibility on the engineering resources, the pilots, etc. I think the timing for me, it was a bit something that I didn't understand. So maybe like, how do you see it for your project, the timing perspective mainly?
Well, we know in terms of the design, that should take about 3 to 5 years approximately, just in the conceptualizing, the prototyping, the testing of it. Then we want to grant about another 2 to 3 years just to make sure it's finalized and everything is safe. And then in terms of costings, do one of you guys want to?
No, I didn't.
Have they froze by any, or is it just me?
I don't know.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
back. I think maybe you're frozen. Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So the question is about the costs and the timeline of the costs. To
Correct.
clarify.
So there was twofold. There was the roadmap leading to, I think, entry into service in 2027. So roadmap of the different, I think there was 5 or 6 items. There was a pie chart there showing the different
Sure.
activities that you wanted to do, as well as the second fold was the resource spread over those years. Okay, if we can provide a bit more color.
So we went with the costings that were provided to us in the brief based on the research and development of that. The only extra cost that we have for that was the $70,000 for materials per aircraft carrier. As for the timeline of that, I think it's very much linked in with the timeline that will be needed by the engineering side for the development of the planes. We looked over the next 5 years just for rental of airspace for the actual aircraft carriers, and we looked at marketing costs and such. But I think the timeline for that will be very linked with the timeline for the development of the aircraft carrier.
And the entry into service was 2027, from my understanding. Is that's what you had?
I think I don't think I understand the question fully. What area are you looking at the costs over the next couple of years?
Yeah. Are you guys there? I'm just
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, we're
okay, perfect. So I guess just okay, I'll start over. So 2027, I saw it was kind of an entry into service, or it was maybe 2032, the objective. So I guess, is it 2027, just from my understanding that you had in your proposal?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I guess you spoke about like cost, about a $70,000 cost, but I'm just asking, I was asking for maybe more color about the roadmap to lead to that 2027, like how much of the expense you were saying maybe in the first years, and maybe how much it will be expanding as you go and approach the entry into service of the platform. When would that? What a bit more color about the spread of that and the resource as well, because you're not going to ask for all the resources to be coming at the same time.
Oh yes, okay. So what we want to do is first we want to prioritize it first. So what we first want to do is we want to design the planes and make sure they're fully up and running perfectly. Then we want to, after those 5 years, then we want to perform risk assessments, safety assessments. Then following on, we won't incorporate things like mechanical trees just yet. Things like that will come in a later time. We're spreading out how much resources we need each year. To make sure that we don't ask for such a large lump sum at the beginning.
Okay, good enough for me. Thank you.
I'll jump in next. Yeah, nice job, guys. I'm an engineer, so I'll ask you a more technical question. What led you to choosing a helicopter as your platform?
Well, when looking at helicopters and tilt rotor planes, we realized that for Indigenous groups, they're usually living in very remote areas, very difficult to reach. So for the planes that we designed, they can do vertical takeoff and landings, so they can reach more areas better. Okay, because the tilt rotor would I think is a good solution, but the picture you showed is of a helicopter. So that's, I mean, I like the mission that you chose and everything, but Quebec is huge. And some of the communities you're trying to reach are very far. And you're using sustainable aviation fuel, which is a lot more expensive than regular jet fuel. So have you thought about the infrastructure that you'll need in place to carry the fuel that far? And is your aircraft going to be able to fly that far in one shot? Or is it going to have to stop and refuel? And how does this impact your operating costs ultimately?
Well, I believe when we were looking at our design, we were taking all that into account. So in the final design, if a team of engineers were looking at it, we would prefer if the plane could do the delivery in one flight, like there would not be any stopping in between.
Okay.
So it obviously have to be designed according to that. But our design is just, we were looking at other similar planes that had the concept of what we would like, and then we were trying to design based off of that.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, I can go next. I'm also an engineer, so I'm asking some engineering related question. So my first question is like, when you talk about the plane, you mentioned like it has a capacity of 10 passengers, right?
Yeah.
So like the purpose of having this plane is to take the goods and stuff to the remote area, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
why is it to have like 10 passengers? Isn't it better to have like kind of interior design for the goods and stuff like that?
The plane has a dual purpose. So it has a purpose of carrying goods while also being able to transport these indigenous people from their areas back, or vice versa. So that it has a dual purpose. So it will be able to do both. Like it will be large enough to have goods and also bring people.
And then like in time, if we see that we have more and more traffic, we would then separate those two. We would have just one for people and one for the goods.
Okay, and do you have any like estimation calculation on the maximum load weight that it can have, like in terms of goods and stuff?
We were approximating about 600 kg.
600 kg.
That's 600 kg, taking into account any sort of fuel, supplies, textbooks and education equipment, hunting equipment, food, other resources.
Okay, thank you. And one more question is like, you talk about mechanical trees. Can you explain a little bit how they're going to help in fingerprint, reducing the carbon fingerprint?
Well, with the mechanical trees, we were using that as a way to tackle any carbon emissions that our sustainable aviation fuel uses. So it would be a method of placing them in so that eventually every year we implement them in Canada, in Quebec, in the area, and over time the amount of CO2 they absorb from the air will be more than what we give off. So we will have reached carbon neutrality.
Just to build on that as well, the way mechanical trees work is that the ones we've selected, they passively absorb the CO2 and then they can actively reprocess it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I guess I'll go next. How much time do we have left, Gabriel?
About 4 minutes.
4 minutes? All right. I'll do a quick, just one or two quick little questions. My interest is on maybe then the business side. So this is fully funded by government, I'm assuming, is that?
Yeah, initially the initial outlay would have to come from the government sources. But we looked at then going forward, once the pilot planes are in motion and everything is set up, that to operate maybe as a charitable organization, or perhaps link with Canada Post as a joint venture.
Okay. So as government is investing, government was looking for a return, and sometimes the return is not a financial return, but a social return. And we understand that part. It's a socially laudable exercise. Can you tell me just, I think I saw at the very beginning, but I'm not sure I picked up on it, the number of, what's the, I'm going to say ROI, but not really in sense of ROI typically, but number of jobs that this thing might create. And what are we, you understand by funding air traffic to the northern parts, you're also undercutting actual businesses that are run to do just that, right? There's currently there's airlines that do this service and pay for service type of thing. So if I'm going to invest in this as a government, what am I getting out of it? What am I getting out of it in job creation or other aspects that I may not have caught? So that's my question to you. Thank you.
Okay, so for the social return, the companies that are employed to do this, they pass on their costs to the customers. So as we had at the start of our presentation, like without a government subsidy, you're looking at $20.13 for a 4-litre bottle of milk. You're looking at $65 for a chicken. So I mean, the government is looking at feeding these people. They're living in the north. They have no access to reasonably priced food. And at this day and age, I don't think that the Canadian government wants to have that, to have citizens of their country going without food because of price. So I think the social return on that is that the Indigenous people get access to food. And as for the creation of jobs, I think we estimated initially that it would be 15. But that goes up further when you're looking at distribution and you're looking at logistics for actually procuring the food that you're going to be sending. So the knock-on effect of that, I think we looked at between 20 and 25 within 5 years, but that would be a conservative estimate.
So,
And also, like, if we,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, if we improve their quality of life, so because if they're not eating now, if they're hungry, then like they'll be able to have normal meals and normal basic needs, needed goods, and we can reduce pressure on healthcare, I suppose. And yeah, I just wanted to say that.
And to support people to stay in their communities longer.
Okay. Thank you for that. So 25 jobs and the total investment, over, do you have that number, the total investment?
It's 750 million over the first 5 years.
Sorry, how much?
750 million.
So 700, so let's say 150 million over 5 years and 25 jobs. Can I get, sorry, just before Gabriel, this is maybe a personal question, but can I have each one of your names in order? Because I don't know your names.
Sure.
So you
My
sort
name
of
is Robin.
Sorry, what's your name?
My name is Robin Coleman.
Robin?
Yeah.
Next,
And my name is Uzoma.
Uzoma. Next,
My name is Matea, Matea.
Natea.
Yeah.
And
And I'm Elena.
Elena. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I hadn't jotted them down from earlier. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank
Right,
you. Thank you.
so the question and answers period is over. So Gabby, you could move on.
Perfect. So I'll be opening the breakout room. If you don't see the prompt, I will move you. There's no problem. The judges will go in the judge deliberation breakout room and the participants in the participants room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You won't be long. Welcome back, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Once everyone is back, we'll start the feedback period.
Hi.
Perfect. So when you are ready, we can start the feedback period.
So I'm not quite sure how this works.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Someone like to go first, or I can open it up. Whoever wants to.
Well, you know what? I'll just open it up because we were speaking in our debrief there, and one of the things that I found interesting was the fact that you've addressed a very real problem that exists and has existed for really forever. You know, the cost of food, the cost of anything, in fact, in these northern communities, accessibility, all of these issues are a real issue, a real world problem, and a real problem for not just the Indigenous communities that live there, but for all, frankly, for all Canadians. So I think it's a good, you know, a good path and a laudable goal, and you know, couched in, you know, proper ethical considerations. There's a lot, of course, you know, being new, that you don't know about. You know, there's a much bigger story, a broader story. But I think that the fact that you took it on as a challenge, I think, is commendable. So I'll open with that, and then I'll pass it on to my colleagues to continue on the feedback. But I think that was interesting and commendable. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, so if I may, to continue and maybe piggyback on what Stephen just said, I think yes, it's a problem, and it is really complex. It's not an easy problem. You probably, as you deep dive into it, like for 12 hours, I think you could see the complexity of everything. I think the main complexity behind the numbers, behind, you know, how you want to do it, like the technical aspect of it, you know, what you want to build as a platform, the infrastructure issue, which I'll let my colleague from engineering bring some feedback. I think there's a huge social acceptance for Quebec, yeah, that you touched. But I think there's also a huge social acceptance from the people that will get that service. It's really something that in the past, and maybe you guys are not aware. I'm not sure how far you are in your understanding of those communities, but I think it's something I think I would like to see a bit more in the presentation. But it's how do we get them involved? How do we get them to buy in and participate into that project? It's not just trying to solve a problem and there you go, it is there it is. It's more so how we help them to help themselves, right? I think it needs to be done jointly. It's a joint venture with them, with the communities, with the overall, you know, Indigenous community. I think this is that aspect in terms of acceptability that was also something that should be considered, and it's key. You can have all Quebec wanted to do that, or all Canada wanted to do that, but I think for them, it's really important also to accept it and to be part of the solution. So that's maybe my feedback that, like I said, behind everything, which is economics and technical, it's key to this project.
Thank you.
Bahare, would you like to go ahead?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Nice job. I think the problem you're addressing is a very interesting one and a necessary one to think about. That being said, the platform that you chose, a helicopter, would be I think it'd be very challenging to make that work for that environment. the obvious advantage of a helicopter is it doesn't need a runway. So in that sense, that really helps you because you're going to places where you might not have a runway. However, those places are very far away, and a helicopter generally just doesn't fly that far. In addition to that, a lot of these airports and communities don't have fuel, which means that, and this is what we do today when Air Inuit or whatever airline flies up north, they actually fly up fuel so that they have enough fuel to fly back. And in a helicopter with a 500-pound payload, that might be all you're able to bring is just gas. So you won't have any room for your actual your food. So, you know, moving forward, try to think about how you're going to address these technical challenges and how you could address those through infrastructure to, first of all, have the fuel, and then think about also how you could maybe extend the range and the capability of your vehicle. But overall, you know, there are advantages and disadvantages, and I think you guys did a good job trying to address those. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just continue with Paul comments. I also like the idea. It was very interesting, and it's a very important challenge to be considered, especially in Quebec. It would be nice if you could add more engineering aspects to your work and more analyses, you know, about the technical aspects of the project, because I felt like you spend more on business side but less on engineering side, but I think they are equally important. But generally it was very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other feedback on the side of the judges?
No, I don't think I have. I personally don't have anything else. So, I mean, I think overall, and I hope you're understanding the sort of the message that we're sending you is overall the solution was, well, the problem was a real one. The solution, the fact that you want to address it, is good and noble. The execution on the actual platform was not as strong, and there was a lot of difficulties with what was being proposed. I think, you know, there's a lot of well, to be honest, when I was listening, I said, well, what's different from what we do now, right? So how is your solution or your platform different from our current situation? And that wasn't clear to me. And I'm not sure it was clear to the rest of the evaluation committee. So that, I think, is my final contribution to the feedback. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you to the judges, and thank you to Renew. Amazing job. We will see you at the finalist announcement a bit later today. So make sure you look at your schedule. We'll see you later.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye.
Perfect. So we'll let the next team in a few minutes.
Mhm.
Did Stephen leave the call?
Yeah, I think we lost Steven. Maybe he clicked on leave.
Oh.
You got carried away.
He didn't know you will. Maybe you will control it.
I will email him just to make sure he comes back.
12 hours for this kind of project, it's not enough. It goes fast, right?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, but I guess it's just part of the.
Yeah.
There's I don't know if you guys know Calvin and Hobbes, the comic, but in one of them, Calvin and Hobbes is. Are you guys familiar with it?
No.
No.
It's the story of a small boy and his stuffed tiger, and his stuffed tiger comes to life in his imagination, and you know, it's the story of their adventures. And in one of the comics, the tiger Hobbes asks Calvin, the small boy, You know, why don't you just do your homework right now? You just have to draw a picture. And Calvin says, you know, you don't turn creativity on like you turn on a faucet. And Hobbes goes, so how does it work? To which Calvin replies, last minute panic.
And this is where you get more productive.
Yeah. So hence the 12 hours, I guess.
Yeah, that's it.
Any news on Stephen?
No news. Oh, is he in the waiting room? Actually, yeah, he's in the waiting room.
Perfect.
A little bit of stress there. We can see it non-verbal.
So when he's ready, we'll let the next team in. Welcome back.
Thank you. I was under the wrong impression that I had more time between two. I'm gonna go make a coffee, and I.
Oh, you still have 4 minutes. We thought you left the call as if there was no more presentations.
Oh no! I went to
Well, you still have time if you'd like.
No, it's all right.
Perfect. So I'll let the next team in.
Like I mentioned, I might have to step away for a minute, so I'll go off camera and.
No worries at all.
In about 10 minutes, maybe. Thank you.
Perfect.
And just for timing perspective, after that hour, I guess the third team will not be part of it. So from 11 to 12, we're going to do this. From 12 to 1, there's nothing. And then do we need to reconvene around 1, or how does it work?
No, it's all good. After this presentation and you finish the whole process of this hour, you're free to go, actually.
Okay.
It would be that.
And I guess like the final scores, but I'll be interested to see how they do versus the other. When is that presented and discussed? Will we send an email or something, or it's in the closure maybe?
Yeah, if you
Would you like
like.
to answer that? Oh, so for the final, if you would like, we can send you the link to the finalist announcements. And right after, we'll be posting all the scores on our social media platforms.
Okay.
If you'd like, we can forward the information to you as well.
Yeah, that'll be good. I'll be interested. And do we see like the winner? I guess from there. I guess.
The winner is announced tomorrow, because this afternoon the finalists will be presenting once more.
Yeah.
And the winners will be selected among
in the closure in the afternoon tomorrow.
In the closing.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Awesome. So I'll let the next team in so they can get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, click on the wrong button. Welcome, Crossroads. Perfect. So as you share your screen, I will be explaining the breakdown of today's presentation. You have 2 more minutes to set up. Then it's going to be a 15-minute presentation followed by a 15-minute Q&A. When that is done, I'm going to open the breakout rooms, and the judges will go in their own room and the participants in the other, where the judges will be able to deliberate. Once that is done, everyone comes back to the main room for a 10-minute feedback period. Any questions?
That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So when you are ready, you can share your screen. Perfect. The floor is yours. Good luck.
Ready when you are. Good afternoon. We are Crossroads Consulting. I'd like to thank the management team from CFATE for having us here today to discuss with you sustainable transportation models for Quebec. So our vision is developing the aircraft of tomorrow to offer a best-in-class solution for both passenger and emergency transport in not only Montreal, but Quebec at large. But before we dive into our solution, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Joe Consorti. I am the expert in finance and economics.
My name is Connor McCormick, and I am the marketer.
I'm Olivia Mead in environmental engineering.
And Will Jeffries with mechanical engineering. So some of the challenges that we're seeking to address are the medical services and organ delivery fields, which were identified as critical issues in Quebec. And we are also focusing on improving the capacity to provide critical goods and services to more remote Indigenous communities, as well as create new public transportation options to fill the gap within and between more populous areas.
To address these solutions, we would like to introduce our solution, the Modular Vehicle Air Transportation, or MVAT, which provides twofold solutions. One is the platform, and two are the services we will provide. We decided to go with MVAT because of its maximum travel range, sustainable power source, small size, and safety, which we felt the other options just did not accomplish.
So first, we'd like to introduce the platform component of this solution. This is combining technologies from both Fancraft as well as lift and cruise style platforms. The first component of our platform is the Nimble Cabin Module. Now, this utilizes a Fancraft style design, which was selected for its safety as well as its compact size and quiet operation. This system is electrically powered with swappable battery packs that allows for quick turnaround time. The small and agile size, along with vertical takeoff and landing capabilities, make this a versatile platform for both cargo and passengers for local flights of up to 90 kilometers. And this design was based on systems being developed by Urban Air, which already has a field testing prototype and is in consultation for certification right now. The second component of our platform is the Detachable Wing Module. This is an independent UAV of its own that quickly and securely attaches to the cabin module in order to carry it faster and longer ranges with its cruising capabilities. This provides access to remote communities as well as intercity transportation using a lift and cruise style approach, which is much more efficient for longer range travel. Working with the current initiatives to electrify rail and bus transportation, we selected electric batteries which can be charged using very similar infrastructure, as well as for their ability to be quickly refueled by swapping out batteries at the landing stations. Now, these landing stations, especially for the cabin modules, are designed to be lightweight with minimal need for equipment installation, allowing them to be easily installed on office rooftops, as well as major bus or train terminals. The plan for the infrastructure that will be required to make your proposed service offering would also include a recommendation for battery recycling and revitalization to make sure that you can achieve the maximum lifetime of this critical component, as well as integrating artificial intelligence to maximize the efficiency of flight patterns.
Another design standard we were working towards is carbon neutrality by 2050. We would accomplish this using a lithium-ion battery, which Will talked about, having battery swapping capabilities. We would also recommend that you invest in battery recycling and waste management to make this even more sustainable. For materials, we recommend aluminum because 75% of all aluminum ever produced is still in use today. It's a very recyclable material. But we also have to mention carbon fiber because it's an industry standard, and currently Dell Technologies are implementing carbon fiber recycling. We would also like to state that by using existing infrastructure, we will limit the need of additional land resources. Now on to the service aspects of what MVAT can provide. So the first service aspect that MCAT can provide is EMS and medical transport. This can look like a couple of different things, but one being the delivery of organs to hospitals that need them in remote areas and in the greater Montreal area, as well as medical supplies. This can also look like airborne ambulance and paramedic services for remote communities, as well as in the Montreal area. And you can see in this image that there's the capability of the narrow street landing with just the cabin module. We would also like to recommend a complementary solution, which is a hospital resource network to help pair organs with potential patients. Another service is the passenger transportation system. So this would help augment the already in production REM system that Montreal is currently underway in designing, and would offer an additional use of this existing infrastructure that's already in place. We can also use this to connect remote areas as well as intercity movement as well. And because it's shared services, it will reduce costs and the carbon footprint of Montreal and the greater Quebec area.
So to properly integrate the service aspects of MVAT, we would also like to incorporate artificial intelligence. So AI will be slowly integrated into our MVAT systems, and we hope to achieve full autonomy by the year 2040. So the reason that we're going for 2040 is that AI it's not a new field, but there are lots of certifications and requirements involved with AI. So we want to give ourselves a good buffer of time. And we would do so by going through a slow transition from a piloting system to a full autonomous system, which would go from human pilots to pilots with AI systems, to a human pilot in a remote area with AI systems, and then lastly to full autonomy with very minimal human oversight, just in case anything were to go wrong. So some of the perks of AI control, well, I mean, first they're abundant, but the ones we figured to be most important are route optimization and a lack of idling vehicles. We would be able to make sure that all the vehicles are full, so we don't have perhaps like an MVAT system with only one passenger. We want to maximize the number of passengers per trip. Also more efficient travel, that kind of goes hand in hand with that. And lastly, fewer crashes. AI systems eliminate human error, so we would theoretically significantly reduce the number of crashes and even reduce street traffic. So what would the initial rollout of this system look like? So here's a map with Montreal as the center blue airport. This is when the cabin and wing module will be released with the EMS and passenger transport systems. This shows that the modular design allows for travel to and from these large urban airports in its infancy when it first gets released. Now, we should note that remote locations will also have travel capabilities, but their range will be halved. We'll mention the fact that we are going to have charging stations in airports and existing infrastructure. However, in these remote locations, they won't have easy access. We won't be able to build charging stations or landing pads initially, so the distance will be halved. Now, this is what we hope to achieve within a few years. So beyond just the large urban airports, we want to be able to connect people from Montreal to all of these smaller airports and cities beyond. So what exactly is the range capability? So we mentioned 550 kilometers, but here's a visual representation of how far the MVAT system with the wing module can go on a one-way flight. So we have Montreal here in the center, and as you can see, it covers a lot of the southern Quebec province, as well as hitting the major cities we hope to highlight, such as Quebec City, Ottawa, and even Toronto. Now again, I'll mention one more time that if we do go to remote locations, this diameter would be halved, as we would not be able to charge or swap batteries perhaps. So now let's take a look at the implementation timeline of our MVAT systems. There's a lot going on here, so I'll go through it one step at a time. So starting with the first phase, which is initial R&D and testing. So this encapsulates everything from research, obviously, development and testing, but also acquiring certifications that are necessary to get the MVAT system up and running. We would then go to EMS transport, which would be launched in 2031. This would be the first phase, slowly integrated just EMS systems. We would launch the wing module within this time frame to allow for further travel for EMS. And once the wing module is launched, we will begin R&D within our AI systems to try to improve it. Passenger transport will be fully released in 2035. And again, this is a slow rollout. We're being quite conservative with our estimates, as there are lots of certifications that we have to acquire to allow for passengers to be willing and to trust our systems. We will then achieve remote emergency transport by 2036, and that will be rolled out. And then remote passenger transport will be released in 2040. And autonomous EMS transport will hopefully be achieved by 2040, and this will be the final phase of the EMS transport system. And lastly, autonomous passenger transport will be released by 2045, and this will also be the final phase of the passenger transport. 2045 seems like very far away, but again, with a fully autonomous system, we want to give as much time as possible for both research and development, safety, and also certification. So how will we market the MVAT systems? So because this is relatively new technology, we have to make sure that the public eye is engaged and that they're willing to give it a chance. So we would release videos of our flights and our testing to engage the public. We would also have to promote engagement in the cargo and medical transport stage, as that is being released first. So we would release flight schedules so citizens can watch and see how the technology is used. We would also provide user-friendly scheduling on the app when our passenger transport systems are fully released. There will be an app that is made which will allow passengers to be able to book an MVAT system. And we can see a theoretical rendering of the UI here. So here we have somebody in their location. They're able to choose a destination, and you can see there are 4 MVAT systems nearby. And simply they can choose an MVAT system and a location and book a flight. Upon petitioning to the government, we would also hand them this logo. This is the MVAT logo that we would use. Take to the skies. This would be branded on the sides of every MVAT system, and it would also be within the app. This is the main thing we would market along with our product. But what would it actually cost our consumers? Well, the cost for EMS transport when we first released it would be $5.50 per kilometer. While it may seem steep, traditional helicopter prices are about $7 per kilometer currently in Quebec, so this is actually cheaper than what's being offered today. By 2035, when passenger transport is released, we hope to reduce this cost to $4 per kilometer. And we would do so with economies of scale by simply upping production and optimizing the technology within the AI scope as well. We hope to have yearly price reductions, and MVAT will likely achieve a goal of $1 per kilometer by 2050. And again, this number is achieved through economies of scale and optimizing the routing system and the AI system within MVAT. Now let's take a look at what the total cost of the project would be.
Thanks, Connor. Firstly, let's go through the full-time job creation. So as it stands currently, you're looking at incorporating all these jobs you can see across all 5 departments. We'll dive into some details during the Q&A section if you'd like. The numbers I'd like to draw your attention towards are a total employee hire of 69, as well as a total salary of $5.8 million, right? These are factored into our cost profile for year 1. As you can see, these are the full-time jobs that will be created. Let's go into internship opportunities. Obviously, as it stands, we want to provide opportunity to the youth, to the people who truly care about this technology and building a better sustainable future. So taking a look at all the interns that you'll hire across multiple disciplines, mechanical engineers, everything from that to marketing people, right? 10 interns sourced from Concordia University. Not only are you getting very high level intellect, but it's a 16-week long program. And as you can see at the very bottom, this would be the total cost paid per program. You can rotate this roughly 3 times per year. So let's dive into the numbers. Looking at the cost model, this is going to cost a total of $1 billion over 9 years prior to the launch in 2031. As you can see, the primary items are obviously research and development, which is going to cost quite a bit and take quite a bit of intellectual resource as well as human capital. Design and prototyping, training and testing, and you can see the list goes on. At launch, we plan to launch 5 vehicles as of 2031. Again, that is the EMS transport model without the wing module. And this is what your total cost profile is going to look like for those first 9 years. Now, how is this going to be financed? Well, comparative to other similar companies who have raised funding in the EV space, especially EV aeronautics space, we plan on doing 3 rounds of funding over the course of the next 5 years. The first round of funding being the Canadian government. Connor mentioned earlier taking the logo that we've developed and going to the Canadian government in order to pitch them this to secure 20% of your total funding for that $1.05 billion, that being $200 million, which is already what the Canadian government has expressed interest in. 2024, 2 years down the line, we advise doing 2 separate venture capital raising. The first one being $400 million and the second one being in 2027 being $450 million. Both of these being full equity financing for your full $1.05 billion in acquired funds prior to launching the first EMS transport in 2031. So let's dive into some risks and mitigations. Obviously, this is a very large, multifaceted plan, so things are bound to occur. We've weighted multiple risks against their severity and probability. The first 2 risks I'll draw your attention towards first. Those are that the MVAT is not trusted by the public. First and foremost, obviously, this is a large aeronautic vehicle flying through the sky. It could seem unfamiliar to citizens at first. We advise increasing marketing efforts and offering more public education as to what this is. We've also already considered this by factoring in the EMS transport model well ahead of the passenger model. The second risk is that there are issues in acquiring adequate funding. The solution to this would be to scale down and focus on the cabin module. Obviously, the wing module, the second component, can be added on later, and it's more so for inner-city travel as opposed to intra, which we're focusing on. And also a regulatory or certification issues which slow down the rollout. What we'd advise here is adjusting your timeline, making it a lot more flexible to allow to work with certification and really iron out those challenges. So I'll leave you with this. Again, we believe MVAT is the modern day solution to develop the aircraft of tomorrow for not only Montreal, but Quebec at large. We'd like to thank you so much for your time, and we now open up the floor to any questions you may have.
Thank you to Crosswords Consulting. We can now start the Q&A period. You have 15 minutes.
That is Max.
I can. I guess I could take a stab at it first. Wow, good job. It's a lot. It's a lot going on. My name is Paul. I'm an engineer, so I'll talk more to the technical side of things. And I'll start with one question, just because there are so many, and I want to give time to everyone else. AI. This is new in aviation. This is not something we have ever done before. And I was just wondering, how do you plan on certifying AI? And I want to draw attention to one of the points you made. Is you affirmed that AI would reduce the number of crashes. And this is actually kind of a very big question right now. And this is the whole reason AI is not certified, is because, well, we've never done it. And also it poses the question of, does it really reduce crashes? Because in aviation, when we certify, we always assume, always, that the pilot will save the day if the computer screws up. And now we're proposing autonomous aircraft, which there is no pilot. So how do you suggest, or how would you propose, or what would be your certification strategy to not just convince the regulator, but convince the public that your AI is not, in fact, going to be worse than a human, but will at least be as performant as a human?
Yeah, I can take this question. So our idea with the AI integration is that it would be a very slow implementation. And there have been some, I believe that Boeing and Airbus have been working with incorporating sort of like autonomous flight, again, with a pilot overseeing it. And that's why we would sort of go with this remote control system with AI systems in place. So we would have a pilot in a remote area still being there just in case anything were to go wrong. And because it would take up to 20 years for this full integration, there could be many advancements made in the field of AI. But even in our full autonomy section, we would still have human oversight. It would be very minimal. So perhaps we would have one pilot overseeing, let's say, 8 of the MVAT systems, just in case anything were to go wrong. That would potentially help us acquire this certification and get the public to be willing to support this.
Okay, and when you talk about AI, are you talking about machine learning, expert systems? Like, what are you specifically referring to?
Yeah, we're specifically referring to machine learning, so some sort of deep learning network, perhaps even like a continuous time recurrent neural network where it sort of interacts with the body of the plane, and we're able to sort of get this embodied learning, this embodied cognition within the plane.
Okay. And have you, in your budgeting and your planning, have you taken into account the role that flight simulation could have?
Yes, absolutely. We incorporated that in our training and testing in the budget, and we have a few years allocated towards that within our, before we actually release anything into the public eye.
Specifically 3 years and $350 million allocated towards that.
To simulation. Okay. And just last question, how much time do you think simulation is going to cut down on your certification efforts if you didn't have it?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, if you were to certify without simulation versus with simulation, how much quicker do you think you could certify with simulation?
I think we could certify without simulation. It would not be as quickly because there would not be as much trust in the process. So I think by devoting this time and money to the simulation process, we are hopefully cutting down on the certification time.
Okay. Yes, well, that I sure hope so. Because, yeah. Okay, that's it for me. I'd like you give some time to my my other colleagues. Thank you.
Sure. So if I may jump in, quick question, just more on the business side. I think you mentioned like $1 billion for the overall project. I think it seems not a lot for I think a 20 years project, as you stay from 2022 to 2040. Question for you is, what is the return on investment on this one? Like, how do you see that? Because there's a few aspects that could be the platform could be used, right? It could be used for organ, transport, could be passenger transport. So there's a few activities that could be done, but how do you see like the return on investment of that $1 billion for the investment?
That's a great question. So as it stands, the cost model we actually made was for those first 9 years of development. So starting next Monday, all the way through once the EMS transport is launched in 2031. That would be the $1 billion period. And you raise a good question when it comes to return on investment. One of the things that we made sure to do was take a look at the urgency of certain industries before we leverage the passenger transport, which would obviously provide more return on investment once we could scale. Prior to when we could scale, we wanted to launch EMS transport because obviously as it stands, organ transportation is very high ticket when it comes to the dollars we'd be receiving from the network of hospitals to use our services. Not only because we can land in the street like a traditional ambulance, but we can get there an order of magnitude faster than something like a helicopter or an ambulance on the ground, especially during peak travel times when accidents are more likely to occur. So when it comes to EMS, we'd in all likelihood be in profit after the first 3 years based on our numbers. For the EMS model. Obviously, there after that 9-year period, the passenger transport model would be leveraging the existing technology. So R&D would be off the table. The only thing that would be continuously be on the table would be crew training, as well as more per vehicle production as we scale. And so during our timeline, as we're scaling in for user application, when we're talking about transportation, the return on investment would be continual, right? So we'd be scaling this in, and as we scale this in, as we incorporate more cities, you'd in all likelihood be looking at a 1.5 to 2 year between when it was introduced in the city, when users started applying it, and when you'd actually see return on profit for the shareholders. Obviously, that's a large focus because we're doing the majority of our funding through private equity. We want to make sure that our ROI is relatively quick. And so that's the idea of really starting in the proof of concept phase, if you will, for EMS before rotating into passenger transport.
Okay, and maybe like a continuity on that question is it's kind of a step approach, like the way you present it in your schedule. There's the EMS first, and then there's the wing portion, and there's 2 steps before going there. So in terms of gates, and again, going back to the return on investment, is it a project that will be sustainable if you at one point there's too much risk on the sub activities progressing through the projects? Have you thought about maybe what's your strategy? Let's say if a portion of the project doesn't go through. That's my question, right? Because is it sustainable for the first portion, the EMS, and what about the rest?
Right. So we envisioned that it would be sustainable throughout the first part as an EMS system. And we had in one of our risks about securing adequate funding, and we would simply just scale our model down and focus on the cabin module of the MBAT system. And we figured that still could be highly profitable because the EMS transport industry is in great need in Quebec specifically. And as we mentioned in the cost structure, currently it's very expensive to get actually air ambulance services. So even by slightly undercutting their costs, we would be able to turn a profit and also help out the community at large. And you're right, it is a long time horizon between initial R&D and actually releasing our first product. But that's why we're securing rounds of funding throughout a few years, so we can actually show our investors that we can show them what we're producing, what we're designing, what we're prototyping, and be able to secure proper funding and sustain our business throughout that.
Okay, and maybe my last question then will be, what will be the difference in terms of response time from the current system we have? Like we said, it's helicopter and ambulances versus this new concept. What will be the gain in time if you have that? And then the question is, I'm just wondering, does it make the difference to invest $1 billion from the system we have in place today?
I think.
Go ahead.
No, I think our greatest response time difference would come from helping the remote places in Quebec with this technology, especially because we'd be able to bypass any, like, for example, if we were on the ground, bypass traffic depending on what time it is. So I think that response time, the greatest difference is seen in the remote capabilities. But even in the Montreal city, like if it was rush hour, for example, and it was really hard to get across from a suburb to a hospital or even in town, I think being able to go above the streets and go right to the hospital could significantly reduce time by 10, 15 minutes in cases.
And it's also notable that the cabin module solution that we're proposing is a smaller profile than conventional helicopters, so it's able to land in smaller areas. It's a more nimble platform, can get to those locations more quickly within city streets.
Okay, so that's your advantage. Okay, got it. Thank you.
I guess I'll go next. So my colleagues touched on a lot of the same questions. Of course, the main one I think you answered sort of, but I'm going to ask it again, but in a different way. I'm a little bit confused about the sort of the business model. Are you proposing to manufacture these units and resell them to the various cities or states or whether governmental institutions that manage EMS? Are you proposing an air ambulance vehicle to resell? Is that sort of the crux of it, that could also do other things, or is the main thrust of your proposal, an air ambulance, a nimble air ambulance solution?
Certainly. So in the first couple of years, what we envision is that air ambulance solution. And what we'd be doing is, as opposed to selling to hospitals, we'd be essentially creating these and almost operating as a private contractor of sorts. Once we achieve scale, right? So following the initial testing phase within the city of Montreal, and we're moving up to more cities, A, and B, also moving into passenger transportation, that's when potentially we could take a look at reframing things for the sake of making it more efficient and actually selling these vehicles as opposed to operating them ourselves. Within our 10-year time frame, a lot of the cost structure revolved around training crews in-house, developing that AI technology in-house. And so what we generally be focused on doing for EMS, right? So the first 5-10-year outlook following 2032 would be to essentially be a private contractor. So it's working directly with these hospitals and whoever wanted the services prior to potentially looking at rolling this out and selling it. Right? So that's the presentation we've given you is revolved around that first core tenet of manufacturing these in-house and then generally working with the hospitals.
I understand better now. So you'd be essentially a private company offering air ambulance services anywhere where you can sell your product. Is that right? And so then that follows the other question was, and I believe Jonathan sort of asked it, what's the ROI? My specific question is, what's in it for the VC? The VC aren't a charity, all right? They're going to put in, you're asking them to put in 400 million, phase one, or round one. What's in it for them? How quickly will they get? Do you see it a short-term investment or a long-term investment? And what would that return look like for the VC? I mean, government is, I'm not going to say it's charity, but it's, they're not looking for necessarily to recoup their investment other than, creating jobs, which you highlighted. So what's in it for the VC?
That's a great question. So you hit the nail on the head. When it comes to government, ultimately what they're looking to do is create jobs, not looking for a return. So they are looking to provide this service specifically because it would provide the benefit of faster medical transport. What's in it for the VC? The reason we're going to private equity and raising these funds is obviously reaching out because we need the funds in order to scale. We have a fiduciary duty to provide profit to shareholders, right? That's number one fiduciary duty. And so essentially what would happen is in these phases, 2024 and 2027, 2027 is 8 years before we actually launch the passenger transport, 8 or 9 years, roughly speaking, with the current time frame.
So this is a more long-term investment for venture capital. We'd be leveraging the capital we get during this initial raise into the future so that once we create these passenger modules, which customers actually have to pay for in order to use, then we'd kick back roughly 5 to 10% of that earned profit towards the VCs, and then they could scale it, of course. As it stands right now, it'd be far, far more than that because they represent a larger portion of the total equity valuation of the company. So they'd be getting a larger piece of the pie, if you will. Again, number one, fiduciary duty is to provide profit to the stakeholders within the company. And so that's what we'd be looking to do, as opposed to just continuously acquiring capital within this first 10-year period, and then capturing the stakeholders would capture the return once passenger transport is introduced in the following decade.
Thank you, Gabriel. Could we get their names, please? Gabriel, could we get their names, please?
They are on the main scoring sheet if you'd like to look. If you look.
No, I know their names, but I don't know who's who.
Oh, I mean, it's there also with the picture.
Oh, it's
but
there
okay.
also? Okay.
Yeah, you have a picture there as well.
We could start a video.
So thank you so much, Professor.
They are.
We'll now go into the deliberation period. I will open the breakout rooms. If you get the prompt, please accept it. If not, I will just move you, no problem.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
I'm back here for some reason. Can you send me back? I don't know your name. What's your name?
Gabriel.
Gabriel. Oh,
Yes.
so you're Gabriel and the other one's Gabriel?
Yep.
All right. All right. See you later.
Perfect. See you later. Can you see it?
No.
At the bottom, don't you have a breakout room button?
I see me. I see
At the bottom
more.
of the screen. If you click on more,
More.
do you
Yeah.
see,
Join breakout room. Yeah.
there you go.
Oh.
Thank you for coming back. We'll now start the feedback period. You have 10 minutes.
I guess I'll open with a general comment that there was a lot of great things in your proposal. There was a lot to unpack, to be honest with you. So there was a lot of information, a lot of various directions that you were pulling us in simultaneously. Number one, and it sort of goes to the last question I asked, was really on the business model. What was your customer? What were your actual intent? And where was the money going to come from? So I think there was a lot of good in what you did, a tremendous amount of information, a lot of it was complete in the sense that it covered all of the aspects of the business side, the engineering side, and I think there was a good reaction on our part, on the judging part, in what you brought to the table, and the thoroughness and the thought that you put behind all of your, all of the things that you had. So it's a bit of a lot to say and a lot of mouthful, but I'll hand it off to my colleagues that will give you more specific feedback on each one of their perspectives, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe I continue. Thanks for the presentation. I like the presentation, the flow, and also the chemistry in the team. One comment is about the part that you did the problem identification and the challenges that you addressed. So I think for the challenges that you consider, it was too generic. For example, covered ambulance and public transport. So I think some of the topics there, they are alone a big topic, and they are much more complex to consider. But then going through the presentation, actually you narrow it down and got more special on the topic. In terms of engineering aspects, I like the ideas that you had. I think it was quite creative, and I like the idea of using AI for your design. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll jump in. So first of all, congratulations, great presentation. I think you're well prepared. Everything is super neat in the deck. It looks really professional, really, so nothing to say about this. More on the business case side, I guess I feel like it's maybe underestimated, this kind of projects. I know it's $1 billion, seems a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but I feel it's underestimated, which comes also to my question of the return on investment. I think there's maybe a challenge there that needs to take a look at. And also jumping into all those new technologies, you address the risk level, which is perfect. But I think the size of the risks could derail the whole project, and investing so much money. Sometimes it's really something that needs to be taken into account, and maybe more understanding or presenting what you want to do for those risks. So I think it's if I would expand a bit on that, and how would you manage it? I know you had few hours, about 12 hours to do it, so it goes fast. I'm sure you worked on it, but I think I would expand also on the return on investment portion, the business case, and how do you manage the risk going forward. But overall, great presentation. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice job. Well presented, nice slides, a lot going on, and you responded to the questions well. So nice, nice work. However, that being said, for moving forward, I think indeed, yeah, the cost is underestimated. You could spend $1 billion just on certifying your aircraft. I think maybe try to find how much Boeing spends on certifying one of their new airliners, And that'll give you a good idea. And they're not doing AI or novel materials or aircraft that look nothing like aircraft we're building today. So there's a big rulemaking effort that's going to have to occur to enable these vehicles, which is going to be absolutely required for you to do the what looked like ride sharing, public transportation or ride sharing. You're going to have AI for that to work and for that to scale. So I think moving forward, if you could maybe elaborate a little bit more on how is your public transportation solution going to be different from what Uber tried to do? So how are you going to basically keep it from becoming just a privatized one person into one vehicle type of thing? Because that's what happened with Uber. When you're presenting, try to focus more on just one of the missions rather than, I felt like I was being pulled a little bit into many directions of it's going to be remote cargo delivery, it's going to be EMS, and it's going to be public transport. These are all very good things to be addressing, but maybe try to focus in on more closely on one and then explain how the vehicle and the model eventually spills over to the others. What you're proposing is to be an airline. So how are you going to make that work and how do you factor that in the costs? You should elaborate a little bit more on that. And then just kind of as a side note, maybe explain how batteries are a sustainable propulsion technology, because lithium is not a sustainable resource. Mining lithium is not clean. So I agree, we have to move away from jet fuel, but more how is electric propulsion and how is a battery propulsion really going to answer that challenge, which is, I'm not saying there's a clear solution, but yeah. So, but anyways, nice job. This is a very challenging prompt and you guys did a nice job at addressing it. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you. So in summary, we have 4 takeaways for you in order to build, and wishing you luck on the next trajectory. But number 1, risk mitigation was something that was jotted up by Jonathan. Cost as well. And I think everyone and the team really was looking towards having a more focused solution. So you brought up, the air ambulance, a taxi service, a bunch of things. And as Bahar has sort of mentioned, each one of those is in and of itself a giant project. So maybe something more focused. Pick one. I'm not going to tell you which one to pick, but pick one, and really try to focus a little bit more there. And then the last note that Paul mentioned on the sustainability issue, which we didn't really hear a lot of, but is very top of mind, of course, for everyone. So I don't have anything further unless someone else does. Thank you. Well done.
I think if I may, one topic also that I forgot to mention is maybe defining what will be the difference from what we are currently existing. Okay, because investing money needs to be, when you speak about 1 billion, 2 billion, whatever it is, it's huge amounts of money, and it needs to make the difference to convince people to invest this kind of money. So I think we asked the question, but I think it's something that you should be maybe looking at also, because for organ, transport or whatever the project you pick, as Steven mentioned, like whatever you pick, from what we currently do, what is the difference, and how do you convince people to that difference makes it pushes the investors to go and bring $1 million or 2 million or whatever. It needs to be significant because it's huge amounts, but it needs to make sure also in the business case perspective for them, right? What's in there for them, and for the overall social aspect as well. I think how do you for the person that will take your aircraft, what does it change in his life? What's the main difference? Is it time? Is it comfort? Whatever you want, right? It's for you to define. I think it's important to explain that a bit more and see the difference from what we have currently existing. Overall, great job.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So there's no more feedback from the judges. Thank you so much, Crossroads Consulting. Amazing job. We'll see you at the finalist announcement. So look at your schedule to make sure not to miss it. and we'll see you later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
For the judges, just want to thank you for participating as judges, and it was really nice to have you as part of our panel. Sucks, honestly, that we can't have a third team.